welcome to this evening session entitled Reflecting on 2025 and Embracing Holistic Prosperity in 2026. So I'm going to pause for a brief moment and give you all some time. This is a family event. It's not only about you reflecting and putting things in perspective, but it's also getting your family on board. So call a friend, call your husband, call your wife, call your daughter, your son, to come and share this journey this evening with us. So I'm just going to give you all a minute or two to get persons together, to get your writing pads out, to get your pen or your pencil out, because I guarantee you that this evening's session will be a very enlightening and dynamic, life-changing one as we prepare to step into 2026. All right, so you all are doing the calls. You all are calling your loved ones, calling your children. Yes, yes. I am seeing them coming. Yes. Wonderful, wonderful. Call someone. Let us not be selfish people, but let us be selfless and ensure that the blessings that we are going to receive this evening from our facilitators would indeed spread it to other persons. So, ladies and gentlemen, we stand at the threshold of a new year that awaits us. It is both a privilege and a responsibility to pause and reflect on the journey we have traveled in 2025. Sometimes we complain, sometimes we get depressed because things did not work out how we expected it to be. But sometimes we fail to do the hard lifting. Sometimes we fail to be patient and to sit in stillness and reflect. And reflection is not only merely looking back, but it is an intentional act of evaluation, a deep and honest conversation with ourselves about every thought we entertained, every decision we made, every word we have spoken into our lives and into the lives of those whom we love, and every action or choose not to act. So this evening, just going to give you a brief synopsis. This evening, we are going to be looking at the art of evaluation. And I want you all to ask yourself the very important question. How did my fears shape my choices in 2025? When 2024 began and when it ended, we had a lot of hopes, a lot of dreams, and some of us may have achieved it. Some of us may not have achieved it fully, and some of us may not have achieved it at all. So therefore, we need to ask ourselves the fundamental question: how did my fears shape my choices? Did my need for approval silence my authentic voice? Were my decisions aligned with my values, or were they driven by urgency and convenience? So these questions matter because they reveal the patterns that either propel us forward or held us back in 2025. Some of us experienced victories, others faced setbacks, and many of us wrestled with silent battles from within. But here is the truth. Every experience on this journey is a teachable one. So as we pause, as we reflect, and as we prepare to step into 2026, let us commit to doing things differently embracing peace over chaos, joy over anxiety, and financial wisdom over impulsive spending. A sound life begins with sound choices, and sound choices begin with clarity. We are going to look at setting new goals this evening, coming out of the maze that sometimes we feel overwhelmed, and focusing on our goals in 2026 that are not just ambiguous, but achievable goals. Sometimes we become depressed and we become discouraged because we set goals at the beginning of each year that is totally unachievable. But if we realize that we set achievable goals and then we break them down into smaller tasks to achieve whatever it is we set out to achieve. So that reflects clarity of purpose and a vision that inspires action. The reason why I would have asked you all to get your pens and your paper so that you can write down throughout the session. Write them down. Speak them out aloud. Let them become the compass that directs your steps. Remember, a goal without a plan is a wish, and wishes do not build legacy. Plans do. We are going to look at challenging yourselves for greatness in 2026. Understanding that whether it is mastering technology, improving communication, or exploring a creative passion, we must look and challenge ourselves with a new skill. When you invest in yourself, you multiply your capacity to serve others, and that is what we are about. And to create wealth, not just financial wealth, but financial wisdom, influence, and discernment and impact. We are also going to look at the foundation of true prosperity. Some people think that prosperity only lies with us being financially sound, but it goes beyond that. We must remember that true holistic prosperity begins and ends with God. Success without Him is fragile. Achievement without Him is hollow. And in 2026, let us pursue an intimate relationship with the one who holds all things together. Make time to pray. Seek His guidance. Align your plans with His purpose. When God is at the center, peace becomes possible, joy becomes sustainable, and prosperity becomes inevitable. So in closing, 2026 is not just another year. It is an opportunity to live intentionally, to rise above limitations, and to embrace a life that is whole, spiritually grounded, mentally clear, emotionally balanced, and financially secure. So let us walk into this new season with courage, clarity, and conviction, knowing that the best is yet to come. So I will leave it there for now. And my prayer at the ending will close off everything very nicely. But I just want us to pause for a moment and just say a simple prayer as we begin this session. So in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly and eternal Father, we give you praise, we give you honor, and we give you glory. We thank you, God, for who you are. We thank you, God, for your word says in Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. And we stand on your word. We bring your word into your remembrance. And as we come together today to reflect on this year, our ups and our downs, our good times and our bad times, times that we felt like giving up. But here we are, we have made it almost to the end. And as we prepare to step into 2026, let your will be done in our lives. Let us be brave enough to reflect. Let us be brave enough to be honest with ourselves, with our loved ones, and let us be courageous enough, be strong enough to remove the clutter from our lives as we cast it upon you, for you care for us, so that we can step in to 2026 stronger, more courageous, more diligent, and intentionally passionate in living a better and more holistically blessed lives, not only for ourselves, but to share it with others. We ask this in Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me at this time. I now hand you over to my dear friend and brother, our EAP specialist, who is going to guide us through and help us to reflect, to be honest with ourselves, and to prepare us to step in to 2026 more strong, with greater clarity and a better vision for our lives. Ladies and gentlemen, I pass you on to Mr. Daniel Subtil.
Thank you so much, Mark, and a pleasant good evening to everyone in the WestQ family. I'm very glad to be here this evening, and I am joined together with my colleague, who some of you may have met at the credit union, the Miss Chelsea Rollock. So her
Hi,
name is
Chelsea. It's nice to have
Andrew
you with
Sukil.
us.
Thank
Yes,
you.
but yeah, so Chelsea is also an EAP specialist, just like myself, and we are privileged to be here this afternoon to share this time with you to facilitate this session. So I just want to reiterate Mr. Ferret's call for you to get something to write with. That will be important and will come in handy as the session progresses. So Ms. Rollock is going to assist me throughout the session. You may feel free to type anything in the chat because I am in presentation mode. I may not see the chat. So Chelsea is going to help me kind of monitor the chat as we go along. As we can see from the session's title, this session, we're all about reflecting as well as looking forward. So we want to reflect on times past as well as look ahead. I know that some of us may have had a long day. So it being our norm to have sessions in the evening, I am aware that some persons may have had an extended day. So I just want to give you a couple of moments just to take a few breaths, take a few deep breaths, right? And just sort of allow yourself to be present for this afternoon session. There may be different things going through your mind, different things that occupy in your thoughts. But for a moment, let's take about 2 to 3 deep breaths and allow yourself to, what we say, feel grounded in this present moment. Right? And as you're doing that, we just reiterate our objectives for our time together. So for today, we want to facilitate a guided forum for participants to be able to do these two things: reflect on 2025 and begin the process of brainstorming and strategically planning ahead for 2026. 6. And for those of you who may be seeing me for the first time, let me introduce myself. I am Daniel Sukdev, an EAP specialist with your EAP provider, Families in Action. By training, I'm a counseling psychologist, and Ms. Chelsea Rollock is actually a forensic psychologist. And so our role here is to provide you with some guidelines from the science and from the psychological perspective that could assist us in achieving these tasks here. So I want to assume that everyone would have taken their 2 breaths, so their 3 breaths thus already, right? I want to ask the question, what is it to reflect? When we think about reflecting, what comes to mind? What does that mean to you? And so for those, if there's anyone that feels comfortable, you may type in the chat, or you may raise your hand and we may be able to unmute you and have a response there. So what does it mean to reflect for you? Let's get some responses there as we kind of ease into this afternoon's session. Reflection. What does that mean? How do we understand reflecting? Do you look forward to reflecting or not so much? This can be a time and activity that can be anxiety provoking for some or exciting for others.
All right, Daniel, we got one answer in the chat already. Someone said reflecting is remembering to them.
Remembering. Okay. All right. I like that. Remembering. It's an element of pulling from our memories whatever it is that we focused on. So reflecting, it could be self-reflection, it could be reflecting on a specific topic. In this case, the end of the year.
Yes, we got
So
another response, mentally going over my plans.
Okay, mentally going over my plans. And I like that. That speaks to the idea that it's a conscious, that active thing that we're doing, mentally going over our plans.
Someone else said something to think about, something past, or something to come.
Okay, something to think about, something past or to come. All right, thank you so much for those responses. Yes, so to reflect is that conscious act of thinking over, right? Reflecting on something that we've done. And there's an element of thinking deeply and thinking carefully about something, right? So in our case today, we are reflecting on the year past. I want to share with us a very interesting diagram here. Let me see if I can zoom in. So this here is, I'm not sure how many of you may have seen this before, but it's the life in weeks. On the top there is the average American. Well, that's related to the information on this side here, but we're not going to go there just yet. What this is in front of you here, this diagram, you'll see all of these squares. And each square here represents 1 week of life. So you will recall that there are how many weeks in a year? 52.
I think it's 52.
Weeks. 52, correct. There are 52 weeks in a year. Maybe 52 and 1 day on a leap year, something like that, right? But on average, 52 weeks per year. So this diagram is a really interesting one because it kind of shows us at a glance, at a bird's eye, 30,000 feet in the air, how many weeks. This represents a 90-year life. So you would begin to observe that there's a beginning and there's an end to it, right? Now, let me just caveat. Sometimes this can be anxiety provoking for some, it can be unpleasant, but for others it could be motivating or interesting, right? So bear with me as I go through this. So this diagram is a representation of your life. Somewhere along this diagram here is where you may have currently arrived at. So on the y-axis and that vertical axis, that's our age. So you'll see 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, etc. So I'm just gonna, maybe around here, everyone in the call should be able to try and gauge or identify where they are currently at in their lifespans. Do I have the ability to make a mark? I may not have the ability, but anyway, see if you could identify for 2025 what point in your life, how many weeks of your life would have passed already, right? So how do we do that? On the side, on the left axis, you try and find your age, whether it be the younglings among us, 25 or 20 something, or the mature persons among us who are lower than 25. So I'm hoping that it's zoomed up sufficiently enough. It may be a little difficult based on the there, but let's see if you could kind of gauge how many weeks may have passed and how many weeks you have remaining based on the average. All right, so some of us may be around here. Can I? All right, I do have a pen. Let me see if I can get a laser pointer rather. All right, so are you? Is my laser gone? Laser is gone. Maybe you're around here, and it's the end of a year, so we are almost around probably the 40 something or the 50, nearing the 50th week of the year, right? So the global average life expectancy is around 73 years, right? So that's somewhere around here for those who can see my laser pointer, somewhere here. Now, let's try to make sense of this when it comes to the work life. And I'm gonna just briefly take us to this average data here for the average American. So you'll begin to observe some of the categories or the different in colors. See if you could begin to see, now because it's American, and this is based on 2014 statistics and data. At the right hand, we'll see the years related to elementary school or primary school, right? That's between 5 and 10, 11 years old, thereabout. Middle school or secondary school, or from 10 years old to 16. College, and then look at that field for career, all right? Look in proportion to our lives, look how many weeks on average we spend in a career, right? And the purpose of this little diagram here is so that we could really begin to reflect and understand. Here's what my career, my working life is going to be taking up a chunk of my life and my existence, right? And so for some persons, reflecting on the overall proportion of our lives could kind of help us put things in perspective. So you have career spanning from around 23 years old all the way to about 63, 65 for most of us here. And then some persons go on into retirement for a chunk of their lives here as well. So I hope that this could help us to appreciate the finite element of life as we go into reflection on our year. And so when we recognize the value of a year, the value of a week, this can help us to further appreciate the importance of reflecting. Right? Some benefits to end of year reflecting. It helps us, number one, to gain perspective. In a fast-paced world, reflection allows you to pause, review the year's journey, and see the bigger picture. It also helps us to build self-awareness. When we pause to reflect on our lives, on what went well, what didn't go so well, it helps us to understand our strengths, weaknesses, patterns of behavior, and emotional responses to challenges. What else are some benefits to end of year reflecting rather? Well, we have, it fosters gratitude and confidence. And this is where we acknowledge our accomplishments, whether big or small. It helps to boost our self-esteem and create positive momentum. Now, this in and of itself presumes and assumes that we focus on the things that we can be thankful for, because there are some persons who may not tend to focus on those elements. So when we begin to foster gratitude, when we begin to identify and really focus on those things that were the wins, the small wins or the big wins, and cultivate that sense of gratitude, it can have numerous positive effects on our overall well-being or holistic health and well-being. Again, it helps us to turn challenges into lessons. By examining failures and difficulties, it reveals valuable insights, helping us to navigate future obstacles more effectively. So let's think contrasting this to not reflecting at all. If we take the approach of having no self-reflection or no end-of-year reflection, and we continuously carry on, we continuously go as we've been going without pausing to evaluate, we risk not catching errors and not catching mistakes that can be repeated and carry on further into our futures. But the moment that we reflect and we take time to examine and evaluate efforts made, we can begin to notice patterns, and then by effect, it helps us to learn from the challenges that we faced. As Mark mentioned in his opening statements there, the importance of aligning with our values. So what are values? There are certain qualities, there are certain states of living, certain aims that we hold there, that we aim to organize our behaviors and our lives around. And when an individual is consistently living outside of their values or misaligns with their values, it actually creates some psychological tension, something that we call cognitive dissonance. Dissonance is a musical term. It speaks to being off key or off tune. If anyone is familiar with a keyboard or piano, when you play a chord and it's very musical, it's very pleasant to or hear. But if you were to randomly strike your hands on the keyboard, the likelihood is that you may hit some tunes that are dissonant tunes or dissonant tones, and that creates some discomfort if you're the average person, right? The same thing can happen internally, where there's a misalignment between our behaviors and our external actions and our internal beliefs and values. So when we reflect on the end of a year, it gives us an opportunity to ensure that our daily activities and decisions are consistent with what truly matters to us, thereby reducing that inner conflict, inner dissonance, and by effect, reduces that cognitive dissonance that we spoke about. This also goes on to pay dividends in our physical health. We have less stress, and we've come to learn that stress can wreak havoc in our bodies, in our lives, right? In terms of blood pressure increases and the effect that trickles down into our different organ systems, etc. What else does year-end reflecting help us with? It enables intentional goal setting. So by understanding what worked and what didn't, we can now set realistic, achievable, and meaningful goals for the new year. And I really want to highlight that sentence at the end there. Realistic, achievable, and meaningful goals for the new year. And as we'll see in the second segment of this afternoon's session, we want to help or begin the process of setting some of those types of goals. Finally, in terms of a benefit that we want to focus on, year-end reflecting creates a sense of closure and a sense of focus. It helps clear mental clutter and prepares you emotionally and mentally to start the next year with clarity and purpose. So if we fail to recognize significant moments in time in terms of the end of a day or the end of a week or the end of a year, what may begin to happen is that the boundaries that are demarking these set periods of time become blurred. And it's almost as though we may have a sense of continuity without rest or without a pause. And that can bring about a sense of fatigue, because it's almost as if we're going and going and going without any sense of milestones or mile markers You're just running and running and running, if you were to use a marathon analogy, without any sense of progress, without any sense of any reference point to evaluate progress, right? So pausing at the end of these moments in our times and our culture by the calendar that the globe recognizes in terms of the global calendar, these moments serve as really great points for us to almost act as the end of a chapter and pause to say, okay, for this set period of time, we're isolating this 12-month period and we're dealing with just this so that we don't have to deal with the entire decade at a time, right? So it creates a sense of closure and focus so that we are able to better organize and arrange ourselves mentally and emotionally before moving into the next year. Can anyone think of any additional benefits that were not listed here? So yeah, I want to invite you, you could put it in the chat, or you could raise your hand and we can unmute your mic there. Benefits to reflecting, something perhaps that we did not identify in this slide. Anything else that's different? Or perhaps we're doing good there. All right. So I hope that we can see from the slide that there are various benefits to this exercise. So here, what I want to do is provide some guidelines. I want to invite you to get your notepads and your pens or pencils ready, because after the slide, we're going to go into the practical element or the first practical element of tonight's session. So what are some guidelines to reflecting that can help us? One, we want to create a safe space, both physically and psychologically. It's something that takes time. And if we are really in that anxious mode or in that riled up or energized state, we may not be able to think clearly. So by you being present here, I hope that we've all felt comfortable enough from the beginning of the session to now to mark out this safe space within this hour and a half for this exercise. So get comfortable right where you are. If you're in a nice chair, if you need to switch chairs, get a nice comfortable chair. Get your thing so that you feel that sense of safety and that sense of ease as you begin your reflection exercises. We want to look at some open-ended questions. So questions such as what, how, and why. For example, what decisions contributed to my well-being? Throughout the year, we would have had the privilege of sharing our time together as we spoke numerous times about my mental health, my responsibility. And in preparation for tonight's session, I reviewed some of the topics that we touched on. Earlier in the year, around April, we talked about developing an actionable self-care routine for those who are present. The importance of self-care, yes, we get that that's important, but making it actionable. Later on, we spoke about managing stress positively. And then later in the year, leadership, healthy relationships, and so forth. And we learned about mental health, about stress, about relationships. So as you reflect and evaluate, use open-ended questions. What, how, or why? What decisions contributed to your well-being? Attending sessions like these, when Mr. Ferret throws out the invitation. Pausing in your week, in your day, practicing gratitude, and consciously and intentionally setting boundaries, perhaps. Or another example of an open-ended question, how did I manage challenges, right? And those challenges could be in whatever realm, whatever area that you perceive. How did you manage them? Did you take conscious steps, actionable steps to deal with these challenges? Journaling is a valuable habit, writing down significant emotional moments, positive or negative, and the situation surrounding them. This can aid us when reflecting. It helps us to slow down. So the act of writing can help us to think a little clearer and evaluate a situation from multiple angles, right? So looking back, so thinking about where you were a year ago to see how far you've come. And I saw something in the chat there, not making the same mistake twice, right? And that's one of the benefits of reflecting. Here's an important one, being compassionate. So at the year end, for my very, very high performing individuals or those persons who tend to be, how should I say, very hard or very strict on themselves, sometimes this could be a very frustrating exercise because we are seeing where you aimed at and you're seeing where you may have fallen short. So what I want to encourage you as one of the guidelines as you go into this exercise is to practice self-compassion or being compassionate. So one tip and guideline for doing this is to talk to yourself as you would a good friend. So, sometimes we tend to be more kind and more compassionate when speaking to our friends than our own selves. Sometimes we could be our worst critics or harsh critics. Now, that's not the case for everyone. Some personalities will let you have it, even their friends, right? But I want to encourage us for this exercise to be compassionate as you reflect on your goals and what happened this year. And focus on intention. So instead of rigid resolutions, set flexible intentions that align with your values for the year ahead. And we'll dive off of this last point in the next segment when we reflect on our goal setting segment. So here's where I'd like you to get your notepad out and your pen or writing instrument. Or perhaps you're using your phone and you have a notes app and you'd like to just right there. What we're going to do is something called sentence completion exercises. And these are very useful exercises that can help us. It helps to prompt the mind to reflect in a guided way, in a guided forum. So I'm going to put onto the screen a total of 5 reflection sentence completions for 2025. So how they work, I invite you to you can either numbers on your paper, or you could, if you so choose, you could write out the entire first prompt and then answer the question to whatever degree that you would like to. Now, for the purpose of this exercise, we're going to I'm going to read out the five sentences, and then I'm going to allow you 7 minutes to reflect on your answers. And then I'm going to open the floor for any persons who would like to share, whoever feels comfortable and to what level and degree you feel comfortable with sharing, right? Or you have the alternative. This is going to be a very personal exercise. You don't have to share it. You could just keep it as a note for your own personal reflection. So here are some sentence completions on reflecting on 2025. And the first one we want to start off with is, one achievement this year that I'm genuinely proud of is ... So this is the format of a sentence completion prompt. You're going to write this sentence as is, and then you're going to answer that with whatever comes to mind. All right. So as promised, I'm going to put all on the screen, and then I'm going to give you that time to reflect, and I'll do it together with us so that we have an idea of how much time it takes, right? So this is what we're going to look at. You're going to reflect on 2025. One achievement this year that I'm genuinely proud of is blank, and you are going to fill in that blank for you. So you can see the very individual nature of this exercise. Was it a sale? Was it a 5K? Was it bringing into the employment space and sphere a certain quota, a certain skill learned, a certain, perhaps you learned something related to wellness? What was that one achievement this year that you could say, I'm genuinely proud of? Perhaps you have more. Maybe you could begin to think of 5 or 6. That's one thing for reflection. Another one is a challenge I faced that taught me something important was, and you fill in the blank. There. So I'm just going to run through the next three. If I'm honest, the area of my work or life that needs more attention next year is ... How would you answer this one? What about this one? A boundary I set or wish I had set this year was ... And finally, for the purpose of this exercise this evening, looking back, the biggest lesson I want to carry into the new year is ... So it is now 11 minutes past 7. I'm going to give us 7 minutes to write in your notepad or your digital device and fill out these 5 sentence completions. So your time starts now. Also, another thing I want to encourage you to do is take a picture of this slide. If you have your phone, your devices, that's one option. Or if you choose to write them down, well, you'll have them for reference. And this is something you could expand on in your own time. We have 3 more minutes for this exercise. If you've completed the exercise, you could go ahead and put a thumbs up or a done in the chat so I can gauge how we're doing. Elsie, do we have anything in the chat just yet?
I was now coming to say no thumbs up just yet.
All right, well, that means persons are still writing. Okay, I saw one that's floated. Go ahead, take your time. You still have some time. Yes, let this serve as that conscious moment in your year. Being busy all the other time, but in this segment, in this session, it serves as that getting that moment to really sit and reflect. So go ahead. It is 7:16. You're supposed to have 1 more minute, but I'm going to do us a favor and give you 1 additional minute. Merry Christmas. For those who have completed, and the brave souls amongst us who feel comfortable, and to whatever degree you feel comfortable with sharing, I'd like to get just about 2 or 3 persons just sharing with us from any one of these that what you chose to reflect on from this exercise. Right, so let's give you a couple seconds to think and select which one you're going to share and who is going to share. So we'll take this about 2 persons, 2 contributions. If persons have completed, let me just get some thumbs up or a done or some notification in the chat. Or you could type time if you need a little bit more time. Again, the purpose of this session is for that reflection, both on 2025 and brainstorming, beginning that process of looking ahead for 2026 in a strategic way with our goals. I think I've glimpsed a couple thumbs up.
Not just yet. I'm not seeing
Not just yet.
any in the
Okay.
chat. No. Oh, I just saw one.
A thumbs up. Okay. Gotcha.
I would have given mine prior.
Okay. Oh, I believe I'm seeing a hand raised in the chat there. Mr. Barry, are you able to unmute? If you can, please go ahead, sir, and give your contribution. If you're able to unmute your mic. If not, let's see if I can do it from our end. Or is it that maybe Trevlon could advise? Is it would attendants be able to use their mic or no? Okay.
Yes, if you all want me to elevate someone to speak, that's not a problem.
Sure. Yes, please. I'm seeing Mr. Pierre, Mr. Barry Pierre. Can we have him share his contribution? So, and we'll take one other person after Mr. Pierre, who would, you could raise your hand if you'd like to share a contribution. Mr. Pierre?
Yes, are you hearing me?
Yes, we are. Go right ahead, sir.
Good night, Mr. President. Good night, Mr. Suku. Good night, Miss, I forgot, I didn't get your assistant name or your colleague name.
Miss Rana.
And everybody else. You know, these reflection sentence completion is oh gosh, I don't know how to describe them, but I was able to answer most, and I want to focus on number 3. If I'm
Sure.
honest, the area of my work or life that needs more attention next year.
Mhm.
Next year I would like to focus a lot more on my mental, spiritual, and physical health.
Mm. Mm.
And number one sort of help me in realizing
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
which is one of the achievements this year that I'm genuinely proud of. I am genuine because of certain circumstances and that took place in my life, certain challenges
Mhm.
with myself and my family. I learned a lot. I am genuinely proud that I learned more about natural remedies.
Okay.
I did the research to learn more about natural remedies than focusing on medication.
Okay.
When I say medication, well, you know what I mean. Tablets and cough syrups and these things that you have to go to the drugstore to purchase to fix certain things that are going wrong in your life. So I'm really proud that I spent some time this year doing research on natural remedies, and I need to, and I guess I would like to throw this to everybody. We need to, especially when you reach my age, to spend a lot more time on your mental, spiritual, and physical health. The mental part of it, though, is something that Mr. Fred would have been drilling in us for the entire year.
Mhm.
And that is extremely important. I answered some others, but I'll allow somebody else to say something.
Sure.
But thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pierre. So the importance, Mr. Pierre is going to reflect on number 3, an area of life to improve on uh, that needs more attention is the area of health. He identified mental, physical, and spiritual, right? And he stated about certain things that would have happened in this year with his family that prompted this being an area that he'd like to work on. All right. So thank you so much, Mr. Pierre, for sharing. Do we have another person that feels comfortable enough to share? You could go ahead and either raise your hand, or perhaps we have, if you're not comfortable speaking, you could go ahead and type out in the chat, and Chelsea will be able to help me using the chat there. Do we have anyone else? And be mindful of the time. If you're going to go, I want to invite you to go right ahead. Just indicate by putting your hand up. Okay, I'm seeing a Mr. Huawei Y9S. So, Travlon, would you be able to assist us with Huawei?
Yeah, the person could go ahead and speak. You're unmuted.
Okay, Mr. or Miss, Huawei.
Yes, I miss.
Miss.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, so I'm Natalie Dutton.
Hi, Miss Natalie.
One achievement, I will go with the first one first. One achievement this year that I am genuinely proud of was to have paid off a loan that I had for the last 5 years.
Wow.
And it was a burden to me because it was a very good friend of mine that I borrowed the money from for another friend, and he never paid it back. I felt like, but it's my real friend, I can't do that, So I kept saying, as soon as I get a break, and about 2 weeks ago, I did get the break and I was able to pay back the loan, and I am so happy and proud.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that, Miss
That in.
Lee, Miss
Yeah.
Dalton. Miss Dalton, thank you so much. All right. So in the area of finances, she was able to get some progress, some significant progress in the paying off of a loan this year. So we celebrate that with you as well. So we can see the types of things that person, the little range, and it perhaps is different for you as well. Again, this is very individual, and but that's the fact that you're taking time to reflect to say, yeah, you know what? Yes, boy, within the last 12 months, I actually did do X, Y, and Z. Or here's an area where I see the need for more attention in the new year. Right? So we can begin to see from this exercise, hopefully, the value in reflecting. All right. So we're doing good for time. Now we want to pivot a little bit and we want to go into, all right, so this was the reflection moment there. All right. And as you may have noticed, the particular icon, the mirror, right? We're reflecting on ourselves and reflecting holistically as well. Yeah, so we're pivoting a bit. We're going to speak now to goal setting for 2026. So having done that first piece of reflecting on the year's end, we understand that we are right on the doorsteps of a new year, 2026, and in keeping with best practices of being proactive, setting some goals, begin to think of it in these few weeks before the year is actually here, can be beneficial. So let's speak a little bit about goal setting. And we may be familiar with this for those who are professionals amongst us, who are employees or whatever. You may have your professional development goals, or goals that you have for your job, for your career, for your business. Or if you're not employed per se, you may have personal goals as well. One of the frequent ways that goal setting comes up in our culture is that of New Year's resolution. Familiar with that? I am going to lose 25 pounds in 2025, 25 pounds. So that means perhaps in 2026 it would be 26. That's what it's shooting for. But that's one area that New Year's resolution, that goals come up in setting up New Year's resolutions. But sometimes, as Mr. Ferret would have identified in the beginning, we can set goals that may not have been achievable in the first instance and come to the end of where is that evaluation and reflection moment. This can bring up some frustration when we are coming down on ourselves. I didn't make this goal. I felt so far. I felt so far from the goal itself, and that could make us feel a little down in the dumps concerning our goals. So we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the guidelines concerning goal setting. I have 5 principles from the psychology for us to consider. Then we will reflect on some of the more well-known frameworks for goal setting. And then, similar to what we just did, we're going to have an opportunity to reflect personally with some similar sentence completion exercises. So goal setting for 2026. Goal setting is a powerful motivator, the value of which has been seen and recognized in an abundance of clinical and real-world settings for over 35 years. So in the area of psychology and organizational psychology, different researchers have studied goal setting, and we have lots of data concerning the value of goal setting. When you go into the literature or the research, these persons keep coming up, which is a researcher called Locke and Latham. And they've looked at goals and the importance of goals, the relationship between setting goals and achieving goals and so forth. So here's some of the things that they had to say. What exactly is a goal? Goals, these are the objects or the aims of an action, right? So what it is that we want to achieve, where we want to direct our efforts on towards. For example, to attain a specific standard of proficiency, usually within a specified time limit. So perhaps it was to finally learn how to use Microsoft Excel beyond just typing in and learning how to use the sum feature and those different things. I myself, I think I'm going to include that for next 2026 because Excel is something that keeps coming up. Or perhaps it was to learn a new skill or to achieve something job related specific to your job, or perhaps it is more of in the area of mental health and emotional health. I would like to manage my stress in such a way that I'm able to finish the day with a level of satisfaction, right? I don't feel like a complete failure at the end of the day. Something like that. But so what exactly is a goal? It's something that we are aiming our actions towards. They are the level of competence that we wish to achieve and create a useful lens through which we assess our current performance. So this is specific to competence-based or activity-based, skill-based goals, right? That goal that we set is something by which we can assess our performance. So if we have nothing to gauge or to put a reference point, and we won't be able to evaluate how we're doing. Just imagine if, well, I'm assuming everyone here is in the Caribbean. Imagine persons are on the football field playing football, but there's no goal. There's no goal post. There is effort being exerted, kicking the ball and flying the ball and passing the ball around. All of this effort and energy and action is being exerted. But to what end? How do we determine if the energy and the action and the effort is effective or not, useful or not? Now, if the person just want to get cardio in and the goal, or you see how immersive and ubiquitous goals are in the language, right? What's the purpose? What's the goal of the activity? Now, if they just wanted to get a workout, then by all means, they could run around the field with just the ball without a goal, without a net. But if they want to be effective, it has to have some sort of goal, some sort of thing by which we evaluate performance. And that's why in our world, all of our working world or personal goal, human activity is guided by goals. It directs and gives direction to our activities. So that's what a goal is. It's the object or the aim of our actions. Goal setting is the process by which we achieve these goals. The importance of the goal setting process should not go unappreciated. According to Locke, every person's life depends on the process of choosing goals to pursue. If you remain passive, you are not going to thrive as a human being. And there's actually some more research that shows when persons are depressed, oftentimes it's not the main component, but often a lack of goal-directed behavior can be a contribution towards having a depressed mood or being depressed. You wake up and you don't have anything to exert or to aim for. Aimlessness and purposelessness and a lack of goal-directed behavior actually can have a negative effect on our mental and emotional health. There's actually more research that shows that we actually feel positive emotion when we notice ourselves moving towards a goal. So many high achievers kind of notice this, or even if you're not a high achiever per se, but as a human being, you feel good when you achieve a goal. You feel good when you sense that you're moving towards the achievement of a goal. And oftentimes persons report, and this is such a funny thing, persons would achieve their goal, and then there's a kind of sadness, or there's a kind of, no big deal. And it's called the morning after blues, colloquially in the business literature. And that's where you've set a project, you've achieved the goal, you won the NBA title, you won the achievement, you won the goal, but then you're like, is this all that there is to it? And what we kind of see, some insights we could glean from that, is that the progress, that act of moving towards the goal, is itself, that process is what brings about the positive emotion to a very large degree, right? So goal setting is actually very important to your mental, emotional health. And as you can see from Locke and his colleagues here, they talk about it's important for us thriving as human beings. So setting goals in different areas of your life, and achievable goals, as we'll see in a second. So here are the 5 principles that we want to take note of for successful goal setting. Again, from these researchers, Locke and Latham, and this research was done back in 1990. They came up with these 5 C's, so 5 principles of successful goal setting. We're going to review them briefly, and then we're going to dive in to your own goal setting brainstorming. So the first one is commitment. This talks about how attached are you to your goal. We could set a goal, yes, in January 1st, but then realize by February 1st, that's not a big deal for me, or I'm not really attached to this. I'm not really committed to this goal. I'm going to do better. I'm going to eat less carbs. Oh, I really tried that one. I have to try that some more. Whatever you're committed to, what's the level of commitment related to your goal? Next, we have clarity, the specificity of the goal. How would you know if the goal is achieved? Can you look at your goal and easily see or distinguish what it is that you want to achieve? And sometimes, or oftentimes, there's a lack of clarity. We don't really know what it is that we want to achieve. We're going to do each of these, there's more that can be said for each of them, but this is a general overview, right? Challenge, the degree of difficulty of one's goal. So here's where the having goals that are achievable comes into play. If we set the goal too far ahead, it's too much of a challenge, and it's something that we can't get at all, such as, let's use the analogy of going to the gym and you try to pick up a weight that is way beyond, let's say 100 pounds, 100-pound dumbbell, and you try to curl that. That's the one way with your bicep. Yeah, I know a little bit, not too much, but I know a little bit. That could be, if it's too challenging, that could be discouraging, right? But on the other hand, if you pick up a 1-pound weight and there's no challenge at all, then that may not produce sufficient motivation and drive for you following through on the goal, right? So that's the degree of the goal's difficulty. Complexity, this is the degree of the goal's demands. Is it just a 1 or 2 step type of goal, or is it something that has about 15 or 16 different moving parts and different persons related to achieving this goal? And then the last final principle is feedback, the presence of progress reporting. Do we allow ourselves certain intervals by which we evaluate whether we are moving towards the goal's achievement or not? Maybe it's too much feedback. Maybe at every 10 minutes, we're checking and checking and checking. That's where we have those sayings in the English language that have come about. A watch clock never moves, or I feel like there's more, but that one comes to mind, where we're constantly checking too much, as opposed to finding that sweet spot in terms of how often and what intervals we evaluate for progress. So let's briefly run through each of these, and then we're going to dive in to the familiar framework that we may know of concerning goal setting, and we're going to dive into the practical step. So let's look at commitment. Commitment refers to the degree to which an individual is attached to the goal and their determination to reach it, even when faced with obstacles. Goal performance is strongest when people are committed, and even more so when said goals are difficult. So that difficult means sufficiently difficult, right? This research was done in an organizational setting, so in the workplace. Once they're committed, if an individual discovers their performance is inadequate, they are likely to increase their effort or change their strategy in order to attain it. So anyone can set a goal, but what happens at the point of an obstacle? When there is something that hinders progress, that kind of tests your level of commitment to the goal. Do we abandon the goal at that point or not? Or do we increase our effort? So our level of commitment to this goal determines the level of effort that we put in. We'll begin to figure out a way of overcoming the obstacle. When we are less committed to goals, particularly more challenging goals, we increase the likelihood of giving up. A number of factors can influence our commitment levels, namely the perceived desirability of a goal and the perceived ability of achieving it. To be successful, you must possess the desire and a comprehensive understanding of what is required to achieve your goal. So not to be overwhelmed by all of the words here, but what it's saying is that here's what factors that influence our commitment is this something that I actually want to achieve? So the desirability of it. And then that's one piece. So we may actually really, really want to achieve this goal, but then our perception of our ability to achieve it. If we feel that we don't have what it takes to achieve it, this can impact whether we stick to it or not. And so that's the importance of setting our goals in a manner that is at the right difficulty level. So that was commitment. Second C of clarity. Specific goals put you on a direct course. When a goal is vague, it has limited motivational value. Goal clarity is positively related to overall motivation and satisfaction in the workplace. So being clear, not being vague. Imagine getting into trouble or getting criticized or punished even, but you don't have any reference point on as to why you didn't get a commendation, right? If we're unclear on our goals, that could actually lead to stress in the workplace because we're not sure that it's vague or job descriptions or job roles. What is it that I'm being evaluated on? And that's where goals come in there. Clarity is important. Setting clear, precise, unambiguous goals that are implicit and can be measured. When a goal is clear in your mind, you have an improved understanding of the task at hand. You know exactly what is required, and the resulting success is a further source of motivation. So all that to say that the more clear the goal is, we could picture the steps. It's not vague, fuzzy. We could actually visualize and see the steps that we need to get done. This helps us in achieving our goals, right? So as you set your goals, we want to look at our level of commitment. We want to look at our level of clarity. Challenging, right? How difficult is it? Goals must be challenging yet attainable. Challenging goals can improve performance through increased self-satisfaction and the motivation to find suitable strategies to push our skills to the limit. Conversely, goals that are not within our ability level may not be achieved, leading to a feeling of dissatisfaction and frustration. So here's where we spoke about earlier. If we set the bar too high, if we set the next step too far ahead, we want to, in evaluating and reflecting on 2025, glean from that data, glean from your experiences and see, was this too big of a goal? Was this too vague of a goal or too challenging of a goal? And then now, as you go into 2026, use that information to set more intelligent, strategic, informed goals, right? I think we tend to get the picture here, so I'm going to run through the next two, which is task complexity. Minor in 2005 suggested that overly complex tasks introduce demands that may mute goal-setting effects. Overly complex goals that lie out of our skill level may become overwhelming and negatively impact morale, productivity, and motivation. In other words, if it's too complex, too many moving parts, we could become overwhelmed, right? So we want to have just enough complexity that we could manage it. The time scale for such goals should be realistic. So we don't want to say, I'm going to, what's a good example of this? Well, let's refer back to the goal weightlifting analogy. We don't want to say, I'm going to lift or bench press 200 pounds at the end of 2 weeks if you have no prior experience to the gym, right? Giving yourself time is important, and the sufficient time, right? Allowing sufficient time to work towards a goal allows opportunities to reassess the goal's complexity while reviewing and improving performance. Even the most motivated of people can become disillusioned if the task's complexity is too great for their skills. And finally, feedback. Goal setting is more effective in the presence of immediate feedback. Feedback, including internal feedback, helps to determine the degree to which a goal is being met and how you are progressing. So sufficient intervals of feedback is important. And for those of us who are in positions where we provide feedback for our colleagues or for family members, etc., here's a note for you. Unambiguous feedback ensures that action can be taken if necessary. What's unambiguous? It means it's clear. It's not vague. It's not like you could do better in this area. Well, what does that mean? What specific skill, what specific action can be adjusted? If you are in a position where you're providing feedback or evaluating another person's performance, it helps to be very clear because this now gives them something to action. If performance falls below the standard required to achieve a goal, feedback allows us to reflect upon our ability and set new, more attainable goals. When such feedback is delayed, we cannot evaluate the effectiveness of our strategies promptly, leading to a potential reduction in the rate of progress. So, when we perceive our progress towards a goal as adequate, we feel capable of learning new skills and setting more challenging future goals. So in a nutshell, as we mentioned, we spoke about these 5 principles. Let me get the original picture here. Commitment, clarity, challenge, complexity, and feedback. 5 principles of successful goal setting, according to these researchers, Locke and Latham. Now I'm going to review that familiar framework of the SMART goal setting, right? So we oftentimes, if you have any introduction or any exposure to looking up an article or video concerning how to set goals, for the last several decades, the SMART acronym has been a very, very pervasive, very long-standing framework that works for some, or for the vast majority of persons. It doesn't work for everyone, but they are general principles that can help. They stand for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. So specific means making your goal specific and narrow for more effective planning. Something that's specific is not vague, it's clear. Measurable, make your goal and progress, make sure that your goal and progress are measurable. Something you can put a number to it. And that's a very helpful note. Can you put a number to it? Numbers, words tend to lack a level of precision, but numbers can really help us with precision. That's why your blood pressure and all of our medical measurements, you have a number to them. Or even in the financial world, as you are very familiar, numbers. How much dollars do you have? Plenty. No, what is plenty? You have X amount of dollars. Similarly, with our goals, if you could put a number to it, this is very helpful in crafting it to be measurable. For example, I would like to spend 30 minutes per week without my screen. 30 minutes per week with no screen time, intentionally. That's something that's measurable. 30 minutes is definitely defined. Achievable, making sure you get reasonably accomplished within a certain time frame. Relevant, right? So aligned to your values or to your long-term objectives and within a specific time frame. And speaking of time frame, we are going to jump into a practical piece here to reflect on your goal setting exercises. So I'm saying that we have 10 minutes here, Mark. So let me ask Mark to advise me. Mark, would you like us to spend that time in the goal setting, or would you prefer if persons take a picture and delve into it on their own time as we wrap up and draw to the conclusion of the session?
I would prefer us to spend that time with the actual goal setting.
Lovely.
Sometimes we walk away and we put it aside, and that's the end of that.
Very good. All right.
Yeah.
So we have our instructions, persons. Let's go right ahead into the next step. So get your notepads out as well, or your devices. Similarly to our reflection moment, here is our goal setting sentence completions. Similarly to the last segment, I'm going to read out all 5 and then allow you that time to consciously and intentionally begin the process of setting your goals for 2026. Here are some useful exercises, statements. First one
Excuse
is,
me, Daniel,
Sure.
is that an old hand from Barry, or is that a new hand?
That's an old hand from Barry. He never put his
Amen.
hand up from earlier.
Brother Barry, oh, God bless your heart.
Okay. All right. Actually, I think that's a good juncture. Do we have any questions, any comments, feedback from what was shared thus far? Perhaps if you do, you could go ahead and put it in the chat. That might be uh, more feasible at this moment. All right. So anything else popped up? Any comments from that
What we
portion?
do have in the chat is a compliment for you, Daniel. Delia's iPhone, I assume it's Delia, says this is wonderful.
Oh, lovely. Thank you, Delia's iPhone. Glad to hear that. Um, so without further ado, we go
And we
into
have some clarity as to who is Delia, if she is so brave enough to identify. I always like to get to know the community.
Gotcha. So there's a call. If you're still with us in the room, Delia, can you, Delia Mendez, member.
Yes.
All right. Lovely. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
being with us.
Delia.
Okay, so with your pens, pencils, or devices and notepads out, we go into our goal setting brainstorming. The first one is in 2026, the most important change I want to make in my work or life is dot, dot, dot. And we're going to fill in those blanks. As per before, I'm going to read all five and then you'll have your time to dive in. The second one is a goal I want to accomplish this year because it aligns with my values is. So for 2026, in keeping with your values, your core values, or what it is you value as an individual, what is a goal that's aligned to your values? So to refer back to Mark's beginning statement, we don't want our goals to be driven by our fears or anxieties or decisions. As much as possible, we want to make decisions and set goals that are aligned to our values. Right? This is a moment to reflect on that. Here's an important piece to it. To make progress on my 2026 goals, the support or systems I need in place are dot, dot, dot. And this helps you to think about the process more so than the outcome. So when we set our goals, there are two ways of thinking about it. One is outcome goals. Outcome-based goals are, I would like to have a six-pack, the muscle, right? But the process, so that's an outcome goal. But the process goals would be what are all of the action steps and the habits and the activities that I need to have in place on a week-to-week basis to achieve that. I'll bring it into the workspace. If you want to get a quota of, let's say, $100,000 or whatever, that's using a random number, right? For whatever that quota is, what are the systems, the actions, the habits, the different things that need to be in place for you to achieve that outcome, right? So this is the get our gears thinking along that line. Number 4, one habit I will commit to in 2026 that will move me closer to who I want to become is dot, dot, dot. Also align with our values, a sense of self, a sense of who we want to be. And finally, by the end of 2026, I want to be able to say that I dot, dot, dot. Here you are. These are 5 examples of goal setting sentence completions. Let's now spend 7 minutes reflecting on these questions. Your time starts now. So just as a matter of a time check, we have just about 3 more minutes, perhaps 2.5 by the time I'm finishing this sentence. For those that are completed, like before, you could go ahead and give a thumbs up or put into the chat. And also, I want to invite 2 persons that haven't gone before to begin to prepare, just to share with us, in as much as you feel comfortable, an answer or 2. So I want to invite persons. There's two persons. If you feel comfortable, you may raise your hand. When I say raise your hand, there's a feature to raise your hand. I'm wondering if I'll be able to see it on my view. Perhaps you'll be able to see it on your end. And if you're not comfortable with unmuting your mic, you can feel free to type it in the chat if that's easier for you. I do look forward to hearing at least one or two contributions. All right. It is 8:02. 7 minutes is complete. But in keeping with the season, you have 30 more seconds. Do we have anyone that feels comfortable to share? Please go ahead and raise your hand using the raise your hand feature. See, Mr. P is ready to go, but just as a matter of seeing if there may be anyone else that would like to go, I'm gonna give them that opportunity. But don't go too far, Mr. Barry. If no one else goes, you are free to assist us here as well. So who else? Do we have another person that feels comfortable enough to share? You don't have to go into personal details, but anything that you feel comfortable sharing. So going once, going twice. Anyone else? Okay, all right. Mr. Barry, the floor is yours. Travlon, can you assist us in this area?
Okay, again, good night again. Well, let me apologize. I'm not really going to answer or complete any of these sentences, but what I want to say about this kind of aligns with the benefit of year-end reflecting. And I don't know if now is the time for that, or should I wait to the end? Are there any questions?
In terms of a question that you had?
All right. The goal setting for 2026.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these. Okay. Some of the things that we are hearing tonight deals with you individually.
Mm-hmm.
Your goal setting, your benefit of the year end, building self-awareness, fostering gratitude and confidence, turning challenges into lessons, and but we don't exist alone in life. So a lot of these things, you need family support.
Right.
All right.
The systems in which you live, yeah.
Yes. So for number 3, to make progress on my 2026 goals, one of the support system that needs to be in place is family support. Especially for those who have spouses and children.
Right.
Right. I mean, I've been out of the single life for quite some time, so I don't know
if it's similar
to people who still live at home, or it might be a different sort of support. The degree of support might be different as a married individual to that of a single person.
Right.
But to progress on your 2026 goals, one of the support systems that is needed is that of the family.
The family. Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha. Thank you for that.
And if I may, benefits of the year end in reflection. We had asked if there's anything that you think we should add.
Yeah.
Right. I couldn't find my raise hand, and I couldn't.
At the moment. Okay.
Yeah. At the time. But again, this is so much self that I was wondering if an inclusion could be enlightening. Also, you could find words that would be better than what I'm using here, but enlightening people close to you, so that the mistakes or your lack in 2025 they wouldn't make that mistake when it's their turn or when they're progressing through their walk of life.
In terms of others, between family or other colleagues or
Yes.
so on. Gotcha.
Yes. So one of the
Alright, thank-
benefits of your end reflection is being able to share with others so that they wouldn't make the same mistake or they could improve. Thank you
Gotcha.
very much for allowing me to share.
All right, thank you so much for those points raised and very, very important points there. So what I'll say is this: so we raised 2 points there. One being the area of support. So granted, yes, the information provided here would have been with the view of the individual primarily, but of course we understand now that you are not just an individual, you're not isolated in the world, but you may have a support system, or you may have a family system, a family unit, or you live with other persons, not blood related. You exist there are other persons in your life. So what I'll say to that is that you are right. There are some goals that need and require family or others to be involved. What I would encourage you to do is still very useful to brainstorm or think upon what we call the circles of control or the locus of control. Locus meaning location. There are things, and you hear it in common language, like there are things that are within your control and things outside of your control. And so for the purpose of a reflective individual exercise, reflect on what is within your control as an individual, even if, worst case scenario, even if you don't get the support from other persons for these particular goals. What are the things that are within your control to move towards the goal in the area of exercise, in the area of your relationship, in the area of health? There will be some percentage of activities or actions that fall within your immediate control as an individual, rather than the support of others. It would be nice to have the support systems in place. That's an added benefit. Of course, all this is relative to the goal at hand, right? So that's my encouragement for this particular exercise. The other piece to that is that you can alter this same exercise from an individual level and conduct this with your family. You can, or with your colleagues, with your department. At some point, you, as again, a screenshot of it, or you could just know that you have the knowledge of goal setting, you have some information concerning reflection. You could come up with your own questions and use this as a group exercise together with your family. Let's say if you're married or you're in a relationship, you could do this as a couple, you could do this as a family. How do we reflect on our 2025 and what do we want to look forward to for 2026? So that's my 2 cents on the first contribution there. And then to the second contribution where you spoke about the benefit concerning, I believe it was similar. Was it similar in the sense of working with a group? You can just remind me, Mr. Pierre, on the second point of feedback, it was concerning a benefit to goal setting that you said.
Okay, it was that's not the way we are talking. So we are dealing with the benefits of it and reflecting. And what I think I said is about sharing.
Right, sharing it. It could be an opportunity to share with others.
With others, so that
Gotcha.
they could be a little more focused on not make the same mistakes or what that effect.
Thank you for reminding me. Yes, so that one benefit could be on sharing with others. Another contribution that I'll say or comment on that point is, of course, and you hear this also in the language as well in terms of who you choose to share with. Especially when it comes to dreams, when it comes to goals, some persons say, don't share it with everyone and everybody because they may not be supportive or they may not be excited for you. That's one perspective, that's one philosophy. But to your point, it can be a motivation, it can be an encouragement to others. So yes, to the positive piece of that, but just to be mindful of now in terms of who, time and place, when you choose to share, in terms of who and what and to what extent. So that's just my piece of advice concerning that second contribution. But thank you so much for that contribution there. All right, so being mindful that it's 11 past 8. Let me just bring a reminder to us as we close on this topic here, considering reflection as well as goal setting. Uh, the EAP is a service that you have access to. If, you know, uh, in the new year to come, you realize that, you know what, I think there's certain goals I have been working on, or I've set for myself that I would like to get some support in. You could reach out to us at the EAP. We're here to help. As you can see, we have a variety of services here that you have access to. Through the leadership of Mr. Ferret and team, they've made this service available to you all as both members as well as employees to have access to, right? Not just psychosocial support, meaning counseling of up to 3 sessions, but there is that of those 3 sessions, you could use up to one of them concerning your health, dietary fitness, or um, financial consultations, right? So how do you access that? For employees, you can reach out to us, or you can reach out to Mr. Ferret and team, and they'll be able to direct you on how to go about accessing that service. All right. So I want to thank you all for your time and your attention. You'll see a QR code to scan here. This will take you to our online portal, which is like a website. You can log in using this username and password. You'll get a variety of information concerning mental health, workplace support, stress management, work-life balance, etc., etc. Or you could reach out to us via email. Use at eap@familiesinaction.net, or using our designated helpline 628-2333. All right. So remember, as we see in that tagline on the top there, you can't pour from an empty cup. Taking care of yourself powers every role you play at work, at home, in life. So as we reflect and as we look forward to the new year for holistic wholeness and well-being, I want to encourage us to, as we go along, ensure that we fill up our own cup. You take care of yourself so that you'll be able to show up and perform and take care of others as well. So without any further ado, I would just like to hand over the floor now to Mr. Ferret at this time. Thank you again.
And thank you very, very much, Daniel. And thank you very much to, is it
Chelsea.
Chelsea? Yes, Chelsea. Chelsea, don't worry. I will get the name perfect as we continue to build the relationship together. But thank you guys so very, very much this evening for facilitating our final session for 2025. And as I was telling Daniel previously, I am very excited of sitting with him and to work out our schedule for 2026. It is important, it is extremely important for us to really be still and reflect in our lives and where we are and where we want to be. And I love what Daniel said about being compassionate towards ourselves, because sometimes we need to speak to ourselves as we would speak to our friend or brother, what kind of advice and the gentleness that we would give towards them, we give it towards ourselves instead of being so harsh and using harsh words towards ourselves to further bring down ourselves instead of lifting ourselves up. So I really love that part. I want to thank everyone who is here, and I am going to use my closing prayer as just an interactive session as we part. In my prayer, I would have spoken and asking God, just as in Psalms 139, verses 23 to 24, as we leave ourselves bare and we leave ourselves open, and as we seek to step into a new year, sometimes I think one of the reasons why we become so depressed and discouraged is because we make resolutions. And sometimes we don't achieve those resolutions. But I have stopped doing that years ago. And I have taken another approach and take it on a day-by-day basis in terms of achieving greatness. So we want to ask God so that He can search us, and that He may know our hearts, and He will test us and know our anxieties, our anxious thoughts, and to see if there's any offense in us, and lead us in the way of everlasting. So we ask God that He will continue to test us, that we would look at challenges as just as what they are, challenges to propel us forward, to improve ourselves. And just as in Romans 12:2 would have said, we must not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but we must be transformed by the renewing of our mind. Yes, sometimes we don't take the time to be still and read a good book. Spend some time with God. We want to change. We desire to change, but we don't make that effort because we claim to be so busy. And then at the end of the day, when we are in our winter experience, we realize and we ask ourselves, how come me here? I did not realize that so much time has passed and I have not achieved. And I like what Barry said about that family support. That is also critical. And as leaders within our household, we need to pull our families together and share with our families what our goals are as individuals, and listen for what their goals are as well, and what the overall arching family goals are, so that we can work together to achieve those goals. I would have, in my opening prayer, I would have reminded God of Jeremiah 29 and verse 11. And we lay claim to it. And I want to read it again because this is very important. And we want to lay claim to it. It is a promise. It is a promise that God has given us, that He has plans for us. Yes? He declared it. And plans to prosper us, not to harm us, and plans to give us hope and a future. So we need to ask God for His divine assurance that our lives is not just left by chance. What we plan, our plans are perfect and they are full of hope, and that He must help us in our times, give us our wisdom in every pathway that seems uncertain, to deal with it. I want to leave with us, of course, Proverbs 16 and verse 3, that says that we must commit our ways unto God, and He will establish our plans. Do we sit and ask ourselves the questions? We have plans, but does our plan align with what God's plan is for our lives? Because sometimes we keep running and running, and we never stop and say, okay, I want this, but what is my calling? What is my purpose? Is my plan aligned to the values? Is my plan aligned to what God wants for me? So we want to ask ourselves that. So I want to leave us with those thoughts, those prayerful thoughts, and I want to ask God to let 2026 be a year of transformation, a year where we can all walk boldly in our faith, embracing holistic growth and experiencing holistic prosperity in spirit, in soul, and in body. And may all that we do, as we reflect at the end of 2025, let us be real with ourselves. And as we step into 2026, let us confess with our mouth those things that were established before and bring them into a reality. All these things I pray for all of us, our friends and our families. And as I close up, I want to wish everyone, even if you do not celebrate Christmas, I love Christmas bad. So I wish all of you, and especially as we journey in this Advent season, reflecting on the coming of the Christ child and what it symbolizes and what we expect. So I wish all of you a very happy, joy-filled, Merry Christmas and a holistically blessed 2026. Your life is in your hands in partnership with God. Speak life into your life, into your family's life, your friend's life, your children's life, and let us ensure that when we hear negativity being spoken against ourselves, know when to lock it off. And if we hear somebody being too harsh with themselves, remind them to speak life into their life. So thank you for your time this evening. And I wish all of you a good night. Daniel, thank you. Remind me of my dear friend's name, Ms. Rollocks.
Chelsea.
Chelsea, I thank you. I really am happy to see you here with Daniel this evening. Thank you guys so very much.
You're most welcome. Take care, everyone. Good night.
Yes, good
Night,
night.
everyone.